Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for your interest in the Community Initiatives Program Operating Grant Stream and this information session. My name is Lori Campbell, and I am a Community Grants Advisor with the Community Grants Unit with Alberta Culture and Status of Women. I work primarily on the Community Initiatives Program Operating Grant Stream, commonly referred to as CIP Operating. The purpose of our information session today is to provide a more detailed look at the CIP Operating Matching Eligibility Worksheet and the budget. I am pleased to be supported by my colleagues Phil Chung and Rochelle Ishmael. Both Phil and Rochelle have provided immense support to set up and host the session today. They will now introduce themselves, starting with Rochelle.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rochelle Ishmael, and I work primarily as a program coordinator with the Multiculturalism, Indigenous, and Inclusions Grant Program.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Chung, and I'm a Community Development Officer with Alberta Culture and Status of Women. And today I will be facilitating the question and answer segment at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
The session will be 1 hour, starting with an approximate 40-minute presentation, followed by a question and answer session. Please remember the session is being recorded today, so you can refer to it again after it is posted on our website. Rochelle will post the website in the chat box for me.
We'd love to know who you are and which organization you are representing today. So we would greatly appreciate if you would rename yourselves in the participants list for us now. So to find the participants list, click the participants button in the main menu bar of Zoom. It will be located at the bottom of your Zoom window. Once you've located that, just following the directions on the screen, hover your mouse over your name in the participants list. Then click the More button. Once you've done that, select Rename and enter your name and your organization. Then click OK. So I'll give you a couple seconds just to find your way through that now. All right, thanks everyone. So right now I would like to take a moment to recognize that this is the homeland of many diverse people in Alberta, including First Nations and Métis, whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on this traditional territory that includes Treaties 6, 7, and 8. The information provided today will provide clarity on the unique matching criteria for CIP operating and developing a CIP operating budget and other application tips. First, we will have a brief recap of the funding priorities for the CIP operating program. Next, we'll go through how to determine the community fundraising matching eligibility for your organization on the eligibility worksheet. Then we'll do a deeper dive into the CIP operating budget. We will wrap up with some question or application tips and then move to general questions and answers. You can submit your questions throughout the session in the chat box, which will be collected by Phil and held until the end of the session. We will prioritize questions from the chat box first for those that are broad in nature and can benefit the most organizations attending the session today. After the chat box questions are addressed, and if we have time, we will then go to live questions. If we run out of time for Q&As, feel free to contact us with specific questions about your organization and the CIP operating grant at any time. This session will be posted on the website later if you know of others that could benefit. Lori will post the link in the chat box for you now. Specific questions about the application and eligibility can also be emailed, and Lori will also post our email address for you in the chat box. We respond to all questions as quickly as possible in the order that they are received. Just please note that the volume of questions increases significantly right before the deadline, so please be patient.
So let's get started. First of all, we want to thank you for your interest in the CIP operating program and for wanting to make a positive difference in the lives of Albertans. We hope this session will be helpful to you to learn more about the program, the unique program matching requirements, budget requirements, and whether it is a good fit for your organization. Today's session will be an hour and there's no break scheduled, so please feel free to step away at any time if needed. Today's session is only about the CIP operating grant stream. CIP Project Based is also doing information sessions with the intent to post all community grant sessions for each program on the website for future reference. Please note there are differences in eligible organizations and matching requirements between each CIP funding stream. Please ensure you are using the guidelines and forms for the particular grant stream you are applying for. Forms and funding priorities are not interchangeable across CIP. As a reminder from my general information session, the CIP operating scope is primarily intended for ongoing operations of small to medium nonprofit organizations that address social issues and directly serve vulnerable and disadvantaged individuals with basic human needs programs and services like food, shelter, and safety. Funding considerations include organizations with annual operating budgets of $2 million and less, organizations whose primary mission and purpose clearly align with the CIP operating funding priorities I just mentioned are the most likely to be successful. CIP funds administrative and ongoing operating costs for a maximum of 2 years. Organizations may only be approved for CIP operating once every 3 years.
I'd like to remind everyone of the mandatory information checklist at the beginning of the application form. We strongly encourage you to use this checklist as you develop your application. Before you submit, double-check the mandatory checklist items to ensure your application submission is complete. Applicants are required to submit all of these documents each time you apply. Today, we are taking a closer look at two critical pieces of the checklist: the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet and the budget. A reminder that applications may be returned if they are incomplete. Now we will go through the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet and the unique matching aspect of CIP operating. Matching for CIP operating is calculated on the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet, which is a mandatory document for your application. CIP operating has a unique matching feature based on demonstrated community fundraising revenue and support that your organization has already achieved in Alberta. We use your organization's most recent full fiscal year or current financial period, whichever financial period benefits your organization the most. Matching must be equal to or exceeding the core funding grant request. CIP operating matching is not based on projected or anticipated activity directly related to the budget or project. The Community Fundraising Worksheet is based on all non-government-based support your organization has been able to generate to ensure organizations have a broad community support. Your organization is expected to show you are able to generate some cash revenue to ensure your organization is not solely reliant on government-based funding and support.
Eligible matching revenue includes family, private, and community foundation grants, United Way funding, bingo, raffle, or casino funds, corporate donations, private donations, revenue from fundraising activities that made a net profit, and facility rental revenue. Revenue that is not eligible includes government-based grants, whether they are federal, provincial, or municipal, contract or fee-for-service revenue, program fees, membership fees, interest, and GST rebates. Recent signed financial statements for a full fiscal year must be provided to support and verify the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet breakdowns. This is one of the reasons your organization must be legally registered in Alberta for at least 1 full year. Please remember that CIP operating matching is unique to CIP operating and does not apply to other CIP funding streams. On the left of the screen is the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet. Sorry for the small font, but we want you to know what the form looks like. On the right is an example of a typical financial statement of operations. The arrows from the financial statement to the worksheet indicate how the cash revenue on the worksheet is determined from the financial statement. The example also shows interim or current period information that is not generally provided on the same form as a fiscal year-end financial statement. This is only for explanation purposes for this information session. Don't worry, the font is going to get a little bigger on the next slide. So now let's have a closer look at Section A, the eligible cash fundraising revenue. Here's the top section of the Matching Eligibility Worksheet form. The worksheet form is used to determine the maximum grant you are eligible to apply for. Up to $60,000 may be requested for core operating funding that has to be fully matched. Organizational development funding up to $15,000 does not have to be matched. So the total maximum grant for CIP operating is $75,000. For the worksheet first, at the top of the worksheet form, circled in red, ensure you capture the fiscal year end and/or the interim financial period end for the information you're entering. Ensure all three date elements, year, month, and day, are included so we can establish the date range. Our program guidelines indicate all matching funds must be secured prior to the application deadline and have been received in the most recent fiscal year or current interim financial period. Older financial information should not be entered on the worksheet as it does not provide an accurate picture of the recent results achieved by your organization. If the revenue was earned in a previous fiscal year, like 2018 or 2019, it does not go on the form. All cash revenue on the worksheet must be supported by audited or current or interim in-house financial statements. The statement of operations should clearly show the date range of the financial information and readily support the information entered on the worksheet. Letters of financial support commitments are not eligible for matching for CIP operating. That said, we do understand and recognize that 2020 and 21 have been an extremely challenging time, and organization revenue may be down significantly due to canceled fundraising events and reduced donations. Providing 2 years or recent financial information may strengthen your application to show recent financial results prior to COVID, but the 2020 and 2021 financial information is still required. If you have questions about your specific organization's matching eligibility, you can contact us for clarification. Please have your recent financial statements available when you call to help us guide you. For CIP operating, minimum financial statement requirements include two key pieces of information with the date range clearly identified. The first piece is a statement of operations or profit and loss statement. It is basically a revenue and expense summary. This recent information is required to support the information entered on the worksheet for the same period. The statement of operations is also commonly called an income statement, depending on which accounting software you're using or who is preparing your financial statements. We aren't particular about the name as long as it clearly categorizes and summarizes your revenue expenses, as well as clearly reflects a net surplus or deficit for that period. A statement of operations should capture the full cash operating revenue and expenses of your organization over a specified period of time. Our example shows the total revenue for the organization in the green plus area, the total expenses in the red minus area, and the net profit or bottom line for the year or period represented by the black equal sign. Organizations are always encouraged to seek financial statement advice and services from accredited professionals regarding their operations as your financial resources allow. In-house financial statements are common for smaller organizations, particularly for interim or current period financials. A credible and reliable source for financial statement information for nonprofits is available on the Chartered Professional Accountants Canada CPA website that Rochelle will post in the chat box. CPA is the national recognized governing body for professional accountants in Canada. The second critical piece of the financial statement is a statement of financial position. This was formerly commonly known as a balance sheet. Please note we are not accounting professionals, and we encourage organizations to seek the advice of recognized CPA professionals as your resources allow. The statement of financial position should be signed by the board president and treasurer, or a minimum of 2 individuals with legal signing authority for your organizations. Audited statements prepared outside of your organization should have 2 authorized signing authority signatures on the statement of financial position to verify the approval of the board that the financial information as represented by the accounting firm or outside party is accurate. Audited statements should also include any notes by the auditor located at the back of the auditor's report. Bank statements or trial balances are not accepted in lieu of a statement of financial position or a statement of revenue and expenses. Financial statements in the worksheet are 2 key pieces we look at to determine the financial capacity and viability of an organization, as well as the matching eligibility. We assess the financial risk of each organization, including whether they are stable and have some ability to generate cash revenue to be viable on their own without grant funding. For newer organizations, we look for steady and manageable growth, as well as experience managing cash revenue equal to or greater than the grant request. Any loans, amounts owed, and other liabilities and debt should be clearly shown on the statement of financial position, including loans to founders or related parties. As a note, program managers or board directors that do not have official signing authority for your organization should not be signing financial statements on behalf of your organization.
Next, we will look at Section B of the worksheet, Donated or Non-Cash Services. Section B of the worksheet captures non-cash donations of goods and services based on fair market value. This could include non-government-based donations of office space, computers, desks, administrative services, or food donations if you are operating as a food bank. Donated space in provincial buildings, libraries, schools, or municipal buildings that are publicly funded should not be included. Any amount over $5,000 should be explained under Other, like the example in this slide. Free office space provided by ABC Family Support Agency. Alternatively, if you are working with a number of partners and they are supporting your organization with various space or services, identify the partner, what they're providing for you, when or how often they're providing it, and what the fair market value of that space, service, or donation might be. You can indicate the details within the partnership section of the application form in Section D, Question 7, if there is not enough room on your worksheet. For example, you could write ABC Family Support Agency has been providing free office and meeting space for 2 hours of weekly programming, valued at $100 per week for a total of $5,200. Or ACME Computer Services donated 2 computers in November of 2020, valued at $800. Please keep records of how you estimated or determined the value in case your application is selected for audit. Let's look at more examples of eligible and ineligible in-kind donations. So a few examples of eligible in-kind donations include private donation of a desk or computer received in the current period or last fiscal, accounting services donated by a private accounting firm, food donations made directly to the organization from corporations and individuals, or office or program space donated by a private company or non-government agency. So some examples of ineligible in-kind donations could be use of library computer, desk, internet, and meeting room space, record keeping of program fees by municipal staff, flow through food bank donations to be distributed or delivered to your clients, or free program space in a municipal recreation and cultural facility.
Now for eligible volunteer hours. For CIP operating only, all actual volunteer hours for the entire organization for the most recent full fiscal year or current financial period at a flat rate of $20 per hour can be used toward matching. Volunteer hours include board or committee meetings, administrative, event, and program-related services can all be considered. If volunteer hours are not formally recorded, you may estimate the total volunteer hours. Total community fundraising eligibility is determined by the total of each section, including A, the cash revenue, B, the in-kind goods and services, and C, the volunteer hours. In this example, the maximum matching eligibility toward core funding for this organization is $51,740, as indicated in the bottom right column in the orange circle. Organizations can use their most recent fiscal year or their interim financial statement, whichever benefits them the most. If an organization reaches the maximum core funding request of $60,000 in their most recent complete fiscal year, they do not have to complete the interim financial statement period column. Where an organization had less eligibility in their previous year, either because they were just getting established or due to COVID, the interim financial period can be used if that benefits the applicant matching eligibility more. Remember, the matching eligibility for CIP operating is unique and is only for everything that has occurred up to the time of application. Nothing anticipated or projected should be on the form. Matching for CIP operating is completed at the time of application on this worksheet. Matching is not shown on the budget. If your organization does not match $60,000 on the worksheet, you should not request the maximum $60,000 core operating on the budget, only what you are eligible for based on the highest total on the worksheet. Based on this example, the organization should request no more than $51,740.
Now we'll take a deeper dive into the CIP operating budget. We ask that you keep in mind timelines for your application when you apply. We recommend that your budget start date be after the anticipation notification period for the CIP operating grant, which is approximately 6 months following the application deadline. Expenses incurred prior to the application intake are not eligible to be included in your budget. Please note incurring expenses prior to notification of decision is at your own risk. CIP operating has two funding levels. The first is the core funding level. This invests in the operations and administration of an organization to further its mission rather than specific projects. A maximum grant request is $60,000 and this portion is matching. The second funding level is the organizational development funding. We often refer to this as ODF. This supports a broad range of activities designed to strengthen your organization. Maximum grant request is $15,000 and this portion only is non-matching. So core funding is for ongoing operation costs that your organization incurs on an ongoing basis. ODF is intended to build your organizational capacity and is non-matching. However, you cannot apply just for ODF because it is non-matching. If an organization applies only for ODF, the application will be canceled.
Here are some examples of eligible core operating expenses. CIP operating funds operating or program expenses that an organization incurs on an ongoing basis. Common requests are for executive directors, administrative staff, volunteer coordinators, counselors, fund development, or program staff. Other eligible costs include rent, insurance, utilities, internet, staff and volunteer training, evaluation, and audit costs. CIP operating recognizes the importance of good internal organization capacity. We recognize that some nonprofits are able to generate funding for programs or service contracts, but due to strict limits on administration and overhead costs by funders, they struggle with ongoing core operating costs. Please note, out-of-province or international costs are not eligible, including travel to conferences or training. For newer organizations particularly that have a limited cash cost to date, CIP operating considers whether your organization has the capacity to generate the necessary revenue to cover budget costs in the future.
This is a sample of the CIP operating budget form. On this form, you should show the total projected cost for the position or operating cost you are requesting. You do not have to show your total operating budget for your organization on this form, only the piece or pieces you are applying to CIP operating for. You do not have to put any funding towards the project cost on the budget because matching for CIP operating is based on the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet. Remember, the maximum core funding request, which in this example is the number in the bottom right of the blue area inside the orange circle, is determined from the total demonstrated matching on the bottom of the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet.
Here is a closer view of the core funding portion of the budget. While not required, we do encourage organizations to put some funding towards the amounts you are requesting from CIP operating. Please note that for any staff positions requested, a job description must be included with the application. The job description should include duties, responsibilities, hours to be worked daily or weekly, and the qualifications and skills, and how the wage was determined for the position. Again, please note that the ODF budget request is not mandatory, but can only be applied for at the time of a core operating grant request. A budget tip to remember is the total projected cost column should equal the sum of the funds provided by applicant column plus the funds requested from CIP operating column. When applying, consider that your final report will be based on the approved budget for your application. Ensure you are able to readily track and report on the pieces of your organization budget that you are requesting from CIP operating.
So as a brief recap, Core operating requests up to $60,000 maximum over 2 years may be requested. Do not show your entire organization budget, only the areas you wish to apply for. Matching does not have to be demonstrated on the budget because matching is completed on the Community Fundraising Eligibility Worksheet. Maximum core operating requests cannot exceed the total matching eligibility. Organizational development funding up to $15,000 may be requested. ODF can only be requested with core operating requests. CIP operating budget and Section F of the application form should be consistent. ODF is the bottom portion of your budget. To be eligible for ODF, you must complete the capacity assessment tool and Section F of the application. The self-assessment tool helps you determine your internal strengths and weaknesses in the following 4 areas. The first area is strategic leadership. This is the ability of board members and senior leaders to inspire, prioritize, provide direction, make decisions, and innovate, all in an effort to achieve the organization's mission. The second area is adaptive capacity. This is the ability to monitor and assess and respond to internal and external change to improve your organization's performance, relevance, and impact. The third area is management capacity. This is the ability to ensure the effective and efficient use of your resources. Lastly is operational capacity. This is the ability of your organization to develop, implement, evaluate, and improve programs and services. Section F of the application provides further breakdown of the goals and activities to be completed. The budget breakdown in Section F of the application should be consistent with the budget. You can find the capacity assessment tool form on the CIP operating website, which Lori will post in the chat box for you now. The organizational capacity assessment tool looks like this and includes 4 additional pages, 1 for each capacity element. The capacity assessment tool must be completed and submitted with the application along with a clear plan and/or quote of how the request will address the work to be done and increase organization capacity in that desired area. On this slide, you will see examples of eligible ODF expenses. Please note that you must align your organizational needs with 1 or more of the 4 elements on the capacity assessment tool. Examples of alignment are coming up in the next few slides. You are expected to research costs or provide a quote with the scope of work and specific deliverables related to the capacity improvement area. Section F of the application form provides a template that will help guide you.
Here are some examples of how different activities align within the capacity elements. Operational capacity is a common area that many organizations want to improve on to increase their community presence and improve internal efficiency and reporting outcomes. Many organizations also want to improve their websites or make software upgrades to improve the security and remote access of client data. Management capacity and fund development is another common area many organizations want to work on. Other capacity improvements could include board training and understanding of roles and responsibilities with the strategic leadership capacity element. With an adaptive capacity, many organizations have likely experienced great stress due to COVID and may have had to test their resilience as board and staff priorities have changed and evolved over the past year. The yellow area of the budget is for organizational development funding costs only and should be consistent with the blue area of the application form, Section F, which we'll show in the next slide. This budget captures ODF summary information for each of the 4 capacity elements: strategic leadership, adaptive, management, or operational. Section F of the application is where the details of the capacity building work to be done is laid out. ODF does not have to be matched on the community fundraising eligibility sheet, or on the budget. It is the only non-matching component of CIP operating.
This is what Section F of the application form looks like. Section F provides further breakdown of the capacity element being worked on, including the goal or outcome, the activities to get there, the timeline, measures or indicators of success, as well as the cost for each portion. The information in Section F of the application should be consistent with your budget summary information on the CIP operating budget template. Next, we will discuss some funding criteria and application tips. So
for tips on writing an application, please read the program guidelines. Ensure that your organization and application meets the eligibility and program criteria. Applications are evaluated against the program criteria, and those that best align with the criteria will be given a higher priority. The program guidelines also outline the grant process and what is required of applicants if they are successful in their application. You may notice the worksheet and budget are separate Excel documents. Make sure to download the documents, complete, and submit them with your application. Ensure you submit recent financial statements, including the notes, signed by the president and treasurer. Also include a current board member list with their contact information. Please refer to the application checklist for all the mandatory documents needed for your application. Tell us why you are requesting funding with clear and concise information. Think of the grant application as a story with a beginning, middle, and end. The beginning is the mission and mandate of your organization and the programs and clients you serve. The middle of the story is the critical operational needs of the organization and resources required to serve your community and clients through the programs you offer. The end speaks to the outcome or impact of the funding. What is the anticipated results of funding? What will be your outcomes? What will be the difference, the change, or the improvement? How will your clients and community benefit? Will you serve more clients? Will you pursue more interagency relationships? Tell a consistent story in the budget and the application descriptions. The budget template should have specific costs that align with the organization's need. Pick specific expenses, such as 1 or 2 staff positions or rent and utilities, that are crucial to the successful operation of your organization. Make sure the costs are easy to track and report on later. Remember, position descriptions are required for each staffing position requested. Ensure the ODF portion of the CIP operating budget template and Section F detailed ODF costs are consistent. Whenever possible, include letters of support for your organization from the community and/or municipality. Letters of support are not a requirement for the application. However, they are considered during the review of an application. Letters of support from different community members, organization, partners, or the municipality can strengthen your application by confirming the community need, benefit, and impact of your organization programs. Core funding criteria and application tips. CIP operating applications are evaluated based on how well they meet the criteria within the CIP operating guidelines. The guidelines are on our website under Section 4, and the criteria area clearly outlines the funding priorities and considerations for the program, which begin on page 8 of the guidelines. Application evaluation and assessment is based on the overall clarity. Does your organization tell a clear story of your work, the focus of your programming, the demographics you serve? Are your financial statements and embedded grant agreements signed and submitted with the application? The mission focus. Does your organization's primary mission and purpose address a social issue like poverty, homelessness, or food security? Do you primarily serve vulnerable and disadvantaged individuals on a daily or regular basis, and those facing significant mental, physical, or cultural challenges and barriers? Organization and budget viability. Has your organization demonstrated the ability to raise funds to sustain the proposed operating costs after receiving the grant? Is your proposed budget reasonable based on your recent operations? Demonstrated impact. What is the social issue or need your organization is addressing? How broad is the impact in community? Are there other organizations providing similar services? And are you working collaboratively with these groups? Financial management. Has your organization been operating within the limits of your available financial resources and with a reasonable net profit or loss? Do you have sufficient experience in managing cash revenues equal to or exceeding the grant requested? Does your organization have debt, loans, or significant liabilities? Is your board made up of at least 5 members from within Alberta? Is there a perceived conflict of interest relative to volunteer and staff positions or contracts taken on by the organization? Organizations are considered lower risk if they have broad board representation and oversight. Special considerations include whether or not your organization or community has experienced significant challenges beyond your control. Is your ability to generate revenue down significantly as a result of a wildfire, floods, or other catastrophic events? Is your organization located in a remote rural part of Alberta with limited services and limited opportunities to generate revenue? All organizations that submit an application and who are not successful are encouraged to call the program area directly for feedback on their application. Community grant staff will work with you to explain the possible reasons for why the application was not successful. Staff are also able to provide recommendations for areas of improvements to allow applicants the opportunity to strengthen future applications.
Here are a few ODF tips and questions to consider. Have you completed and submitted the mandatory capacity assessment tool? Will the proposed project clearly improve the capacity area you have identified in the capacity assessment tool? Did you complete Section F on your application form? Is your decision and amounts from Section F of the application consistent with the ODF information on your budget? Did you provide quotes or indicate how you determine costs? And lastly, are the goals, activities, and measures or impacts of funding clear? So thank you everyone for your interest in CIP operating and for holding your questions until the end of today's presentation. At this point, we will stop the recording.